And we are live. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And hello, SG Blaise. Thank you so much for hopping on for today's interview. Oh, I'm so excited because I was saying to you before we went on live, when I first got into indie writing and publishing, I found your books. I was blown away. So talking to you is like talking to one of my indie author heroes. I'm so excited to just talk to you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Katherine. You are too kind. And thank you for having me on this show. I'm very excited to be here too.
So you've had so much going on. You have the Last Lumenian Series. If you're watching and you don't know SG Blaise, I'm going to let SG introduce herself a little bit here in just a minute. But you've got the first book's out, the second book's out, the third book is coming out soon, right?
Yes, it is. This December, very exciting. And I can't believe how time flies.
Oh
It
no,
feels like I just
it's like we're
started,
already in August, almost September.
right?
So for
Yeah.
those who don't know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what kind of books you write?
My name is S.G. Blaise. I was born in a land of castles, monarchies, and fallen dictatorships, also known as Hungary. I moved to California and I've been writing my book series, The Last Lumenian, for quite some time now. I think it's almost 9 years coming up.
Oh wow. And Last Luminian has sci-fi and fantasy mixed in it. It's like a science fantasy, which is I love because I love sci-fi and I love fantasy, and it just marries them beautifully together. And I know we mentioned earlier, despite being from Hungary, your English is excellent. Your written English is fantastic. And I'd asked you, how long did it take you to get to where you're bilingual enough to write a novel? It just blows my mind.
Thank you very kindly, Catherine. It took about 10 years to become fluent in English. Even though I had 12 years of passive English knowledge, I couldn't speak a word when I came to America in 2001. So you can imagine that was a big obstacle in my writing journey. And then it took another 4 years to get comfortable in writing, get an idea. And it took 6 years to develop that idea into the award winning Last Lumenian series. And now I've been on my writing journey for 9 years.
Wow. Well, you've done it just great, a great job with it. I'm losing my words here. But no, seriously, having to learn a language as hard as English in 10 years is a lot to ask. And you've not just gotten one or two awards, you're a five-time award winning author for this series. So have you always written and you just started writing like in English 10 years ago, or however long, like about 9 years? Or, is this whole writing thing new to you? How did you end up writing?
A great question, Catherine. I actually had a nightmare when I was 10 years old. And I remember taking hold of that dream and turn it into an action horror story where I was the hero conquering this crab-like spider creature, and my parents weren't home, so we kids we had to fight it. And I wrote it down and I read it to my classroom, to my class the next day. And I think I got hooked on that appreciation that the readers provide. I experienced it firsthand, and they even laughed at some of my jokes. So I think I was an addict from that point on, and I wanted to become a writer. I just didn't realize I'm going to do it in a different language.
Yeah. Yeah. So is there a Hungarian version too?
I wish. I'm not that good in Hungarian anymore. I was told I have an accent, and
Oh,
I'm not that, yeah, I'm not that great in literature level of Hungarian. There's a difference between, spoken language and written language.
mhm.
And I immerse myself in English to the point that it would be difficult to go back and try to write in Hungarian.
Oh, yes. Even if you're English and if you're watching and you only speak one language, whatever that language is, you know, there's a totally different style to writing than there is to speaking everyday language. So definitely kudos
Yeah.
to you. I am all that more impressed with your work.
Thank you,
We did
Catherine.
get some pre submitted questions on Instagram, which we will go through in a minute. But if you're watching live on YouTube or Twitter, thank you for showing up. Feel free to drop questions in the comments as we go through. And if you're watching the replay and you had a question and you're disappointed, don't be disappointed, because you can drop that in the comments and I'll take it to SG on Messenger and be like, "We got this question," and we'll make sure you get the answers you're looking for. Um, but before we do that, the key information about SG's books and all of her social medias and all of that is in the description box if you're watching on YouTube. So you can click that and follow her, check out the Last Lumenian series. But you've definitely got several fans. I know there was a lot of excitement on the Instagram announcement. So I'm going to call a couple of those questions off. And the first one was, do you plan on creating books outside of the Last Lumenian series?
I definitely have plans to create more than one series. They may seem like they outside of the Last Luminion, but there will be a twist. So I can't wait to start working on that.
Very exciting. That made me wonder, though, how did you get inspired to write the Last Lumenian series? Was that the inspiration of a dream too?
It was. A lot of my inspiration comes from dreams, and it was during a 2012 cross-country European road trip. Can you believe that? And I
Oh,
woke up in the
that
middle of the
sounds
night.
amazing.
And we were in Austria, I believe, and I was jet lagged. I had no idea where I was. It was almost pitch dark, so the only light that came from my phone was the only thing that helped me to write it down in this half comatose state, the idea that inspired this series. And ever since, I keep getting more ideas through dreams. In fact, my latest one, if you don't mind me sharing, was a funny
Please.
one because it started out as an action adventure movie that I'm part of it, and suddenly it morphed into me as an author telling my son that there's going to be a 2-book series and there's going to be a huge twist. And then I remember realizing I'm in a dream, and I told myself, you better wake up and write this down. And that's when I woke up.
Oh, that's amazing. I love
So
this so much.
it's a little weird, right?
It's right. So, literally reading dreams when we read your words.
It
Yes.
is, and a lot of extra work that goes into it. I do spend about 3 to 4 months to develop each books, and then I spend about 30 days to write the book, which is the best part.
So the drafting doesn't take as long necessarily as like the planning it out and then of course the editing after.
That's correct. And the latest one was 19 days, if I don't count the 6 day of break I took, which shows you how important it is to have your notes, at least for myself, because they work for me as writing prompts. And I use them as the foundation, and then I improvise and add more things to it so that it can become that scene that you read later in the books.
Wow. Wow. So this is the master. We've had a lot of authors on at all different parts of the journey. And one of the questions we always ask authors is, what advice would you give yourself looking back at who you were in the beginning? And I've heard so many different things, but it sounds like you've had a pretty good process. So what advice would you give yourself looking back?
It's the same advice I have to keep reminding myself every single day, which is to be patient. Enjoy the process, enjoy the mini accomplishment, be proud, embrace to be a writer and embrace what this process and journey brings on, because the journey is the best part, not the end result. The end result is bonus.
So that actually makes me think that would probably solve a lot of the imposter syndrome that a lot of authors face, because you get to the finish line, which is publication, and then you realize it's not done. There's another book, there's another world. Rest for a couple of days and then pick up the backpack and start again. But if you're enjoying the journey, then it doesn't matter as much that finish line is pushed out.
Exactly. And you can do so many things during those days when you're not actively writing your book. It's going from developing a new world, a new book, reading a how-to book, going to writers conferences or workshops. They're all add to that experience of being a writer, which enriches the writer and allows them to develop their voice better.
Wonderful, wonderful advice. The second question we got on Instagram was also about Last Lumenian series. Are there any characters from the current series that you would want to explore more?
Oh, all of them. Pretty
I mean,
much they
spin-offs everywhere.
spin-offs galore, right? Here we go. But every one of these characters, especially the main cast, there's 9 characters that I love, and they are what I call the Fellowship of Lila, which is the name of my main hero. And definitely in the 4th book, I just got I want to say brilliant idea, but who's to say? I just got an idea today about combining another character with my main hero in the 4th book. And I can't wait to see what the readers would think, how that storyline turns out.
Oh, can't wait. See. So, um, Woman of Power Daily, who asked that one, you have to wait and see what's coming next. So, how long is the series planned to be, or do you know? Is it, you've got the three, so is this going to be a 4, 5, 6 book series?
Definitely the way it looks like right now is 7 to 9 books. I originally thought 12, but I also included the side characters. The side
Mm.
characters, there are 9 book possibilities. So I'd say 7 for the main storyline, and then 9 for the side characters. And I do have at least 3 different series ideas that will, get added into this universe.
Wow. So, yes, a lot more of the characters to come. That's really exciting.
Thank you.
We got a couple comments about your covers, and then one question asking if you designed your own covers, which is something I see in a lot of these lives.
I wish I could say I did it, but I have a very little hand in the covers. It has been done by a wonderful and talented artist in London. His company is the Dissect Designs. Highly recommend for all indie published authors. His covers win awards left and right. It's very talented.
Sorry, I was seeing if I could find a way to pull it up on my screen. Sometimes I feel like I'm so technologically challenged on these things. I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing today.
Oh
I
yeah,
can.
I started with my light wouldn't turn on, and I had to run to my husband because I didn't know what to do. The wiring came loose. That's my
So,
adventure
speaking of
for
your husband,
today.
how does your family feel about your writing? Have they been really supportive, or has this been sort of like unusual?
Look, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you
Can
hear
you
me?
hear me?
Okay. Yes, yes. My family is absolutely the best. They have been my biggest supporter, biggest fan, alpha readers from the beginning. I am just so grateful for their support. I don't think I could have done it without my husband first telling me to stop complaining and sit down to write. That was the initial kick for the first book. Because I did spend the whole year vacillating about should I write this book or should I not. And I was very good at convincing myself of why I should not write that book until my husband said, just write it. Just sit down and write it.
That's amazing. So here's the covers. I'll lean
Thank
over
you.
a
Thank you,
little bit,
Katherine.
but these are all gorgeous. Honestly, I think I saw your cover. I first discovered you seeing your cover shared by someone on Twitter, and I was like, "Well, that's a beautiful cover." Then that would be this one, The Last Lumenian. And I was like, "Well, now I got to look at the book." So then I looked at the book, and I was like, "Oh, this is a really interesting blurb."
Thank
And then
you.
this is your warning if you're watching. These books are addictive, so you're going to get this book and you're going to love these characters, like some of the other questions imply.
Oh,
But yeah, gorgeous,
thank you.
gorgeous covers.
Thank you,
Uh,
Katherine. It does mean a lot coming from you. And I've been reading your book, The Wow, that break.
oh,
I'm sorry, I'm terrible with titles and character names, but I'm reading your book and I can't wait to see what happens. I was hooked from the first page.
thank you so much. Luna's on. Luna says, I managed to catch it before it ended. Yes, you did. Yeah, we have a lot of people on. So if you guys are watching and you have questions to add, please feel free to add them. So one thing we get a lot about indie authors, especially well known, in your case, 5-time award winning indie authors, is, have you thought about going traditional, or is there a reason that you like remaining indie now that you have a rapport behind you?
It's a very good question, Catherine. And I spent a lot of time researching both passes. And I decided that at that time, the best journey, the best road was for me to indie publish. And that's because I was able to keep the creative control, the let it be the cover or when I publish my book. And it was an amazing experience to find a like-minded, skilled freelancers who helped me to create the cover, the website. Don't get me started, the character illustrations, maps. It was such a fun time, and I'm very grateful for their talent to join my team.
So, how did it come about that you ended up with the awards? Because I think there's just this mentality, especially if you're new, and I know there may be a lot of new authors watching,
Mhm.
that when you're indie, you just sacrifice the visibility. You're keeping creative control, but you're losing marketing. And that's not always the case, obviously, here.
Right, right. Actually, that's a very good point that you mentioned, and I'll piggyback on that one in a second. So, these competitions, there are a lot of out there. So I just Googled, competition for self-published books, and there was a lot. And I thought, well, I'm gonna have to enter all of this in order to maybe have a chance to be a finalist in one. And the next thing I know, the first three competition comes back within a month, and winner, honorable mention, and I was shocked.
Wow.
And that taught me the lesson to don't underestimate your book, and trust and believe in your story, and enter as many competitions as you can, because you would be surprised what will come out of it. And if you don't mind, I'm so proud and so happy to share that the first year the Last Lumenian took 20 awards and honors in that
Wow.
first year.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I couldn't believe my eyes.
Wow. I'm so sorry for misquoting your awards.
Paul, I didn't update the Instagram. I forgot. But it's
Wow.
it's it's great to do this, and I think the marketing aspect of whether you're traditionally published or indie published, that's something that's not always a given, and even traditional published authors have to do their own book tour sometimes, add other means to support their books, because they're not always getting that star treatment from the publisher. So I thought to myself, if I'm
Mhm.
going to do extra levels of editing, extra levels of marketing, I might as well just go the indie route and see what happens. And nobody's pressuring me to achieve milestones that I may not be ready for.
Mhm. And Matthew, I think part of your question got cut off. If you don't mind typing it for us, we'll be happy to pull it up and answer that for you. But yes, there. I think what I'm hearing. I know I did a interview with Casey Freeman a couple months ago. It feels like, and she talked about how she left traditional to come to indie, and a large part of it was realizing she still had to do a lot of her own marketing, even though she was traditional. And
Mhm.
so it's not always maybe the glamorized Hollywood version of publishing we think, but still, there's good and bad to every way you publish.
Exactly. And it's
Um,
very well said about how sometimes the best work you do for yourself is what you do and not someone else.
Now, I know you're not a middle grade author, but Matthew asked, are audiobooks worth it to make for middle grade
That's a
for
great
indie?
question, Matthew. I write YA fantasy, and I noticed that my audiobook sales are pretty strong compared to the genre. So it depends on, are you writing sci-fi fantasy? I think some genres are more leaning towards people who like to listen on audiobook, or they like to have it as a paperback. I like to have all three formats, because that gives the options to the readers to pick from, and you can never go wrong with having an audiobook. It's actually very professional.
Yes, and they're not as difficult to make as I had thought they were. I had mine made through the ACX. I don't know how you went through yours.
I
SG?
find a local recording studio, and the first one was recorded by a very young and very talented a lady who was also an actress. And
Oh,
so
wow.
she took on the first book, and the second book she went to college. So the second book was done by a different narrator who was recommended through the audio studio. And we're getting ready to start recording the third book soon.
That's amazing. And Matthew and anybody else, if you're interested in audiobooks, I did a panel interview earlier this year with four different audiobook narrators who use different audiobook methods of finding narrators. You can see that in my um, Indie Author Behind the Scenes series. And it was very insightful for me looking into audiobooks too, because there are so many ways you can go through the ACX and find a narrator. You can hire somebody yourself. You can try to narrate it yourself, like Andrew D. Meredith, the last person I interviewed. So many options. And Matthew says his is an urban fantasy. So yeah.
That's a great genre. I'm pretty sure that would, the readers would appreciate to have the option. Especially like some readers, they not always have the patience to sit still. So having something going and listening to probably is easier. You know.
So one question that we have about your books, and you just said, that you're a YA author, but how did you decide between YA and new adult in it?
That was an interesting, process because I kept going back and forth. Which one should I pick? But I always knew the series was a coming of age story, and that usually fits more into the YA. So I would say my series is more in the top part of the YA because she is 19, and so the goal of the series is for her to find her true place and to figure out who she is, and I think that helped me to place it in the YA.
Mhm. And we got a Facebook question that was, how do you decide how much romance to put in a YA?
Oh, I love that question. I love romance. It's it's whatever feels good and helps to move the story. I like to combine a lot of genres in my books. So we have sci-fi and fantasy, we have action adventure, and then sometimes additional thriller or romance. But I always try to sneak in a little bit of romance, uh, you know, for the main character and a little bit for the side characters because for me it just enriches the story. I'm a hopeless romantic. So whatever feels good for you and whatever fits your story is going to be the best.
Yes. And there's readers for all levels. YA starts at 12, goes up to 18, and there's YA books with little to no romance and YA books that are romances. And so,
Exactly. Genre and audience appropriate definitely is important.
mhm, definitely. So, will you be writing more in the Last Lumenian series? Yes, we've already answered that. There are potentially up to 9 books coming in the Last Lumenian series. So follow SG for updates on all of that. Who was your favorite character to write?
Oh my gosh, I have so many. It's hard to pick just one. I definitely love the main hero. She was an interesting character for me because she was not perfect, right? So she's dealing with mental health issues, namely claustrophobia. And so, following her, I learned that you don't have to be perfect to be a hero. And that was such a great experience. And then she had the other characters, Glenna, to namely, she's her best friend, just to name one, who was not always helping her, often causing troubles for the main hero. And this was just so much fun to explore each of these characters with different type of personalities and how they made my hero's life better or more complicated.
So this one is a little personal. If you're not comfortable answering that, that's totally okay. But it's, how did you get so many reviews? And that made me actually just pull up your book on the Amazon US. Last Luminian, the first volume, has over 300 reviews, which is
It's amazing.
fantastic for an indie author.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. It is amazing. And I wish I could tell you every review source. I know that the biggest boost was Goodreads giveaway. I did multiple
Oh,
giveaways, and I was fortunate enough that a lot of them left reviews. I also did book tours. I did about two different type of book tour in the beginning, and some of the reviewers, some of the bloggers, they actually left reviews, which I was very grateful for. And I also tried Voracious Reader for a while. That was an interesting experience. People can sign up and they can decide to leave a review. They join your newsletter. Um, but mostly it's you never know where they come from.
yes. So thank you to everybody who's reading that leaves reviews, even if it's just a star review or, one sentence. I loved this character. It's always super helpful. And I think that's great that you just put the books out there, and if they like it or if they don't like it, whatever they want to say about it, they just leave the review for it.
Exactly. That's the whole
Um,
point. When you're an author, you just let your book, let go and see how they do, how they work in, how they fit into the reader's life.
yes, I did just drop the link to volume one for anybody who is like, well, I want to see right now, in the YouTube chat as
Thank you.
well. But the next question is, do you read the genre that you write?
Absolutely. It's my favorite genre of all. In fact, I should read outside my genre and I always go back. Every time I get a notification that your favorite author just published a book, I drop everything and I read their books. I love sci fi fantasy. I cannot get enough of it.
So does BookBub have your number? You wake up in the morning and they're like, so and so just released a pre-order, and you're like, oh.
The Amazon, the Goodreads notification. And I'm like, family, talk to the hand. I'm reading.
Uh, so some question that I've seen a good bit, but I've never actually gotten on an interview before, so I'm excited to actually get to ask this one. Is do you feel like reading other people's books in your genre make it harder for you to write something original in your own stories?
That's a very interesting question. And it's also a myth. When you read in your own genre, you get inspiration left and right. And when I say inspiration, I don't mean copy paste. I mean your fantasy, your mind starts thinking about that and it goes on different paths because think about this. Your idea you developed in one way. But if that idea would have been given to another author, they would have gone another way. So each idea actually has millions of ways to develop, and the execution of that idea is what's original because your take, your approach to that idea is unique. Nobody would write that book. So when you read someone else's book and you get to experience their idea, this is where your mind can create, I would go this way, and suddenly it's a brand new story. And so I never felt that was hindering me. In fact, I felt like if I'm not reading, writing is harder.
Yeah, I agree. As an editor for a full time job, I read books of a lot of genres, but that includes mine. And I don't think it's necessarily that you take ideas for plots from other people at all, but more of, oh, I love that. And that makes me want to see what my character would do if they were in this situation. And it helps me like build my characters out more, my world building out more. So I'm excited to hear you feel the same way because some authors are like, well, I can't read anything while I'm writing, and everybody has their own process. We're running a little short on time, so we're going to take one more. And again, if you had questions and your question didn't get answered, please leave them on the comments on the replay. We will get back to those. But the last question is, do you have any book signings coming up?
I have one in, I believe, October in San Diego. I don't know the exact date. I'm terrible with numbers, but I will be posting about that on my Instagram and very excited about that. I had one in DC that was in June in the American Library Association convention, but I'm very excited to do one in San Diego. So if you're there, please stop by. I'll be signing books, giving away books. Everyone is welcome.
Wow. So if you're in San Diego or comfortable driving distance, Go see SG Blaise for the signing. Oh, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much. Truly, it is such an honor. It's always just so surreal talking to somebody who you've looked up to for so long. And so it's just such an honor to actually get to meet you and chat with you and have you on. And you've given such great advice. So thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you, Katherine. You are very, very kind. I truly appreciate you and this opportunity.
Oh, thank you. And everybody, we do have more interviews coming in the coming weeks. I don't have them scheduled out as much as I normally would because I'm in the process of moving. But you can subscribe to my channel and it will send you notifications for the next round of indie author live chats. And you can also go check out the playlist to see the past authors as well. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care. Bye.